Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We are back with our weekly crypto update with Michael, head of written research, pumping out all that alpha over in the research portal every day. So, how's things, Michael?
Good, good. Had a good week. Lots happening, so it's been a good one.
More conferences and meetups and stuff?
We finished sort of the CoinFest Asia events that has all of the side events all around Bali, and now we're actually hosting. Well, not hosting, but we're part of the Polkadot Blockchain Academy, which is based here in Bali, where they got like 100 of the world's best devs that have all come in and like they're all, I guess, trying to upskill them and send them out into the wild. So we've got some pretty talented developer activity happening, which is kind of cool.
Awesome. Let's dive into all these slides and tell us a little bit more about what's happening on the front lines.
All right, well, let's just bring up our tab. So mostly this week, we've had a bit of chop sideways. We had a little bit of a run, a little bit of a pullback. Bitcoin looks like it wants to move and then it doesn't want to move. So I think the general sentiment from most people is that we're probably going to have some quiet periods during September. Um, Again, this is probably more for the chartists out there, but I do feel like we're sort of bubbling around at the moment, waiting for like that other leg to kind of come. And so I saw an interesting thing this week that staked ETH because of the wait list to get out of it actually hit all-time high ETH again, like over 5K. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, we've got like a fair bit happening. And the big one from this week was obviously the launch of the WLFI token, World Liberty Financial. And so, yeah, this is the Trump's project. They had their token generation event this week and it went gangbusters.
I think it had a pretty big dip. I think we spoke about this last week and saying it was probably one to avoid at launch because it would probably pump and dump, and it's kind of how it's played out so far.
Yeah, it surprisingly held up better than I thought it would, though, and it actually didn't pull down the whole market like I thought it would. So I found the irony of this, though, is that if you have a scroll down at like their product suite, so they're coming out with a stable coin, they'll have a mobile app which will connect to TradFi, and then they'll have like a lend and borrow RV style thing. But none of this exists yet, and yet they've still been able to rip a 5 billion market cap and a 30 billion FDV on launch. So we're full of hype. Doesn't matter if you've got products, you just got to have hype and market reach.
And USD1, just another stable coin, centralized stable coin.
Yep, exactly. This one's a little concerning. So the Ethereum Foundation's announced that they're only be selling 10K ETH during the month to fund various different things. So cool that they flag it ahead of time. But I would expect that this should get absorbed by the market pretty well. But a little bit of selling, which you kind of think that they would pick their moments. You would pick their moments when they would be selling. I don't think that they would just be arbitrarily picking a time because they've run out of money there. So I don't know. People can read into that what you will.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't drop more on that news. Like, that's remarkable that, if you know that sort of sell's coming, yeah,
Yeah,
you'd at least see traders dip the market, let them sell at a lower price and then push it back up. But yeah.
seems like they can. People are pretty confident they can be absorbed still. This one was actually pretty cool. So like this is another like I guess Bitcoin treasury company, and they're looking to be the biggest one out of Europe. And so I know you and I were flicking messages around this during the week, and just another big bucket of money that wants to get Bitcoin exposure.
Yeah, if you remember, I had Tycho on the show from Stacks, who's got one of the Zest protocols, and so it's awesome to see him so heavily involved. And this is the next stage of what we've been talking about with Bitcoin treasury companies, and then wanting to get that yield and getting into Bitcoin DeFi. Because Stacks is all fully regulated, hopefully they're the ones to do it. So this was like really exciting to see for me for Stacks and Bitcoin DeFi.
100%. It's kind of what we've been looking for. We want to have more of that like decentralized flavor towards like our Bitcoin ecosystem. So yeah,
Yeah.
good to see. So the US is like just adamant on just making crypto available to more and more people here. So CFTC is now clarifying all of its rules around who can trade tokens and who can not trade tokens. Just making it so that it's just more accessible to US citizens who've been kind of blocked out of a lot of the airdrop farming and a lot of like the trading on offshore platforms. So more coming here and just more accessibility for US citizens, and also just making it so that again, the US are just in the clear. Like they've always just been this black hole where they couldn't participate, and projects had to avoid the US. Where it's the opposite now. If you're going to start a blockchain based project, you'd almost look at setting up in the US these days.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's good for all of crypto, and this isn't just so more people can buy Trump's coin and World Liberty Finance, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. Time will tell. But again, SEC 92 crypto ETF applications they've just come through, and so we had this on the show probably a month or two ago, where we said that there was a pretty high possibility that there was going to be another run of ETFs like Solana, Avalanche, I think Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin and Polkadot were all and Cardano were all very likely to get kind of that boomer coin cohort from
Mm.
last few cycles were all likely to get ETF approvals. And look, look at the list on here. Some of them are like out the gate, like Dogecoin ETFs and all sorts of stuff. So everyone wants to pay, everyone wants a taste, everyone wants a piece of the pie.
Yeah, no real surprises there, but just more money flowing into crypto.
Yep. Another interesting one. So Tether also to launch USDT in native Bitcoin support. So this is now going to be Tether that you can natively get in Bitcoin wallets. So they've obviously, again, your thesis particularly around the fact that everything will sort of gravitate towards the Bitcoin ecosystem. And now Tether, drumming up support for this. I don't know a heap about like RGB where they're going to be deploying. I'm not sure if you know too much here. But yeah, something that we'll dive into and research. But like our team flagged this just recently, just saying, look, like this is interesting that now Tether's actively coming after the Bitcoin community.
Yeah, no, RGB is relatively new, but we saw like Stacks partner with Bitfinex, who were like one of the original issuers of Tether,
Yeah.
and I've heard that this is where they want to bring in not just Tether, more stable coins to Bitcoin and all that type of thing. So, yeah, it just plays into that whole thesis, but I don't know too much about RGB.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll obviously get some more research on it, but good to see that like the Bitcoin ecosystem is still being included in some of this. And I know that in 2021 there was a massive narrative that like Binance was the heart and Tether was the blood of this whole ecosystem, and if one of them blew up, that the whole market would come down. And now we look at the flip side: is that CZ's done his slap on the wrist, Binance is in the clear, and Tether's now been institutionalized because they own more treasuries than like nation states like Germany, and so they're not going to get shut down anytime soon. So yeah, you just become too big to fail, and we now have seen that crypto companies have become too big to fail.
Yeah, awesome.
So for our little Solana section, so the new Solana mobile phone is about to drop, or literally there you go, September 8th. So I know the first one of these that came out was not great. It was cool because I had a couple of airdrops, and people pretty much got the money back for the cost of the phone just in airdrops from meme coins. But the phone wasn't anything like groundbreaking, just another Android phone that was sort of a mid-tier spec. But they're going again, and this is kind of like, I think, is like Tolly's, the founder of Solana's like sort of passion project, because he comes from that mobile chip world. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing that Solana's focused on. We know that Sui's really gone in on their handheld gaming platform, but I guess this is just more like real world use cases that blockchain ecosystems are trying to do, and not just to be financial products. But yeah, this will be an interesting one to see the uptake on it.
Yeah, I was having a really good chat to Jason, who's does all our soul research the other day for people at home. But he was telling me about how these new phones and these digital cards and payments and stuff that you can get like non KYC'd, and so him and others are able to travel and just use this, and so that's the type of stuff that interests me about that privacy and being able to pay and actually real world use case as it gets harder and harder. With all these other cards and KYC and exchanges and stuff.
And if it could abstract the way the use cases of crypto, then that the more the merrier. It's just going to bring in more people.
Yeah.
So again, Solana also now has privacy cash, which I think is like a variation of Tornado Cash. So this is another interesting one where, like, for those that don't know, this is kind of the whole Mixer protocol, where right now, if I send Alex like one Sol, everyone can now see my wallet, and Alex knows exactly what my funds are and how many funds I've got and every transaction I've ever made. And so this is not like being flagged for like criminal activity, but the fact that you can mask, I guess, your bank accounts so that no one knows how rich you are or how poor you are. And so yeah, privacy cash popped off on Solana this week, and so yeah, more developments coming out in that sort of privacy space, which we like to see.
And that ties into everything I just said as well. So that's awesome. Yeah.
And so I guess a little bit off brand, but yeah, we've seen obviously with like the March, like for Australia stuff that happened over the weekend. And like I think, generally was mostly a peaceful protest, but then ended up with a few like bad eggs who wanted to cause some problems. Well, a lot's been popping off all around the world, and this one's obviously a bit relevant to me right now because I'm based in Indonesia. But yeah, the backstory here for anyone who doesn't know, the politicians upped their allowances for housing and made it so that effectively most politicians were all getting paid the equivalent of about 10 grand Aussie a month, about six and a half grand US a month, when the average wage is about $500 a month. And this did not go down well. And so there was protests in the street. And during those protests, the food delivery driver got run over and died. And that was just the tinderbox that just set it off. And so these are government buildings that got burnt down all over the country. I'm glad that not too much happened in Bali. Bali was probably a bit too chill for all of this. But yeah, just goes to show the volatility of the world that we have. And like Indonesia's been this bastion of like optimism for so long that it's going to be the fourth biggest economy in the world. But then it shows the discontent that still sits under the surface in every country. And we've seen those protests as well about immigration pretty much in every Western country over this last month.
Yeah, and when we're talking, to our high net worth clients about where's the best places to live and that kind of thing, and Bali, Indo is often one of those options, and then something like this happens, and you're like, geez, like, where really is that sort of safe and stable these days, and how quickly this can happen, and do they just freeze everyone's bank accounts until the protests stop, and do you have your crypto debit card and crypto phone, or crypto in your own wallet, some way to pay and keep living, as these things look like they're going to continue to keep happening everywhere around the world.
As cool as stablecoins are, and as cool as like crypto Visa and Mastercards are, like these are all still centralized rails that can be turned off at any moment. And I know we can look back to like the whole trucker protest that back in Canada when people were, supporting them with Bitcoin, but then the second someone tried to like cash out that Bitcoin into local currency, then they got their bank account frozen. And so like ultimately we still want decentralized money. As cool as all of this TradFi integration is, we still want decentralized money. And I think the ability for us to still transact direct to each other peer-to-peer is ultimately what we still want to protect. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au. You can sign up for our free newsletter. All our research on the portal here, VIP services, and Philip's just put out another big update as well under data there for those of you that want to check out the cheat sheet with all our data points on where we are in the cycle. So thanks, Michael. And any final words?
No. Just yeah, stay engaged, everybody, because like there's going to be fireworks. I'm not thinking that the cycles are going to end anytime soon. I still think that there's lots to be had here. So I would stay engaged because this is where the magic can happen.
Fantastic. Well, guys, we'll speak to you again next week. Cheers, Michael.